Hello, this is VK3 Alpha Mike Lima, VK3AML on 147.475, commencing the preparatory transmission to tonight's crossband, where the talk-in frequency will be from 11 p.m. 439.225. That's on 70 centimetres talk-in frequency for this crossband. Through to 70 centimetres will be 439.225. Well, the news this week is that sadly the days of long wave in Europe are gradually fading away, long wave broadcasting. And Britain has maintained a transmitter, a single transmitter, through 3 different transmitting sites on a single frequency, 198 kilohertz, since the middle of the 1920s. So it's just about been going, I think, just under 100 years. But all good things come to an end, and on Saturday the 27th of June, that's 4 days from now, they're going to close the British longwave service forever. This has come as a bit of a shock to people in Britain. It was seen as being inevitable eventually. It takes a lot of power to put long waves on the air. Something in the order of, I think, 300,000 watts for the British transmitter. Anyway, let's have a listen to a commentator who runs a YouTube channel called the Oxford Shortwave Log, who gives us the details of the slow death of the longwave band, and then from another YouTuber, Ringway Manchester, he calls himself, we'll have the announcement leading up to the closure on Saturday. So this is the Oxford Shortwave Log on the slow death of longwave. Or it was supposed to be. And there's our first mistake for the night. So we switch and we go, hopefully.
This is a video about the slow death of longwave. Those of you that have been a subscriber of my channel since I started it in 2015, well, some of you at least will know that longwave is my favourite band, and it has been dying a slow death since then. I can't really imagine there being no broadcast signals left on longwave, although that day may well be coming. For me, it all started when I was a kid. I got into radio at a very young age. You've seen some of the receivers that I owned, and from the age of 8 or 9, I wanted a shortwave radio. And didn't get one until I was 16. But what I did have was a radio that covered long wave, medium wave and FM. And so long wave was the one band that you could listen to at night, the volume turned low, and hear foreign stations, but hear them differently to how you would listen to them on medium wave, where conditions of propagation change very rapidly, and obviously AM medium wave signals, essentially being skywave, suffer from dynamic changes in propagation, fading in or out, etc. QS Baker, QRM, channels overloaded, with long wave being the propagation, being dominated as a ground wave. Then if you can hear a foreign station or a distant station on long wave, then you can hear it, and there's never any fading. Some of the long wave stations from even a few years ago were so powerful you could hear them during the day as well. And I think that it was, as a kid, not having access to a shortwave radio, and having, essentially being used to listening to stuff on medium wave and not hearing it very well. You could listen to, European stations on long wave very clearly, and I think that's kind of where it started. I can remember with using the Hitachi radio that I got for my birthday. Well, actually, no, I got it for Christmas as a replacement to a cheaper radio that I got. You would have seen it on my previous video. Particularly with that radio, I used to stay up really late into the early hours of the morning, tuning through long wave, listening to those foreign stations, tuning through the non-directional beacons that I could hear in AM, not really understanding what they are. And it's kind of stuck with me. And since I got back into DXing, into radio in 2015, so 8 years ago, the long wave band has further diminished. So I thought I would do a review on what's happened in the past few years, but I wanted to start by going back a bit further in time. I had this kind of romantic vision that that in years gone by, during the golden years of long wave, that there were like hundreds or thousands of stations on long wave, and of course that was never the case, because the long wave band is only about 150 kilohertz wide, whereas the medium wave band is more than a megahertz wide, so that was never going to be the case. So what I did was I went back through a few old editions of the World Radio and TV Handbook, started with 1976 and checked it out, and there were 72 stations listed on long wave in 1976. Fast forward 22 years to 1998, and there were 58 stations listed. Fast forward again to 2016, which is the first WRTH edition I bought when I got back into radio, and it had gone down to 28 stations. And then in 2023, the latest edition, there are 18 stations listed. Now, the 2023 and 2016 editions include multiple transmissions. So, for example, Radio 4 on 198 kilohertz on long wave includes the lower power transmission sites. So, that's kind of where we are. In 76, when I was a very small child, there were 72 stations. In 2023, there are 18. So obviously numbers have diminished, as we all know. But it seems to be accelerating. So if we now go through those stations that have left the band since I got back into radio in 2015. So France Inter on 162 kilohertz, which, as you now know, is basically a long wave time signal from Alois, started broadcasting in 1952 and closed down on the 31st of December 2016. The image that you can see is a signal as received by myself. And then in 2019, the signal from Europe 1, Felsberg, on 183 kilohertz shut down. Again on the 31st of December. They started in 1955. Radio Zrnal from the Czech Republic on 270 kilohertz to Polna, the transmitter site. They've been broadcasting on that frequency since 1989. They shut down 31st of December 2021. And then RTL 234 kilohertz from Beidweiler shut down on the 31st of December 2022, and they've been transmitting on that frequency since 1932. RTE Radio 1 252 kilohertz shut down in April of this year. They'd been transmitting since 1989. And RUV Iceland 207 from IDAR shut down also in 2023 at the end of February. And they had been broadcasting since 1938. So, some of these stations have been around, 90 years. and and those are the stations that have closed just since I've been listening to the radio, since I started the channel, basically. The other one worth mentioning is TR1 Watan Radio. I'm from Turkmenistan, 279 kilohertz. I used to copy their signal a few years ago, albeit with very poor modulation. And as you can see, the World Radio and TV Handbook 2023 edition doesn't include that station in their listing. So as far as they're concerned, the station is no longer on air. I don't know whether that's true or not. WRTH is usually pretty accurate, but I have seen, I get a couple of newsletters sent to me every month, and the reports are coming in that TR1 on 279 kilohertz is still going, but obviously either a very weak signal and or with very poor modulation. So I guess the jury's still out on whether TR1's dead or not, but certainly not listed in the World Radio and TV Handbook. So what's next? What's closing down next? Well, RUV Iceland, 189 kilohertz, is going to stop transmitting next year, 2024. That's their transmitter site in Gufuskalar. It's a real shame. I really enjoy listening to Iceland on longwave and have done so for several years now. But they're stopping in 2024, following on from closure of the IDAR signal on 207 kilohertz. DR Langbolge 243 kilohertz. Apologies if I incorrectly pronounced that, from Kaulenborg. They're stopping on the 31st of December 2023 this year. That's a real shame. That station has been on air for a long time, and for me, the best interval signal on the radio. Harks back to the golden days of radio, and that for me would be a particularly sad day when that signal on 243 and those chimes of their interval signal can no longer be heard. Real shame. And then closer to home, the BBC have been sort of beating around the bush a little bit, but have finally announced that the BBC Radio 4 on 198 kilohertz signal from Droitwich and a couple of other transmitters will also close in 2024. And that's a real shame. It really is. If for nothing else, I'm going to miss listening to Test Match Special. So listen to the cricket on longwave in the garden, sat in the garden with a drink. It's the perfect way to do it. I know it's available on BBC 5 Live, on DAB, etc., but it just won't be the same. So they're the next three stations scheduled to close in the coming months. So what are the reasons? Why are all these stations closing? Well, declining listener base is often quoted. That goes for all AM radio, and that includes medium wave. Many stations in the UK and across Europe obviously have closed down on medium wave. DXs take that as well, take a positive spin from that, because as all the European stations close, it opens up channels and pathways for North American DX and South American. From some DXs, every cloud has a silver lining. So as the medium wave band empties itself of European stations, it allows more DX through. But it's also the reason cited by RTE Radio 1 said essentially the same thing. Energy costs exacerbated by Russia invading Ukraine, of course. I think I read somewhere that a typical long wave transmitter these days costs £1,800 a day to run because of the energy costs, which I can imagine. There's the cost of maintenance for the transmitter and antenna hardware. I guess that goes without saying, and also technological obsolescence. So basically, you can hear all this stuff on other platforms. You can listen online on the internet, podcasts, DAB, etc. So they're the reasons that are cited for the closures, which, I understand that. Do I agree with it? Not necessarily. Am I in a minority demographic as someone who's very passionate about radio? Yes, probably. So it's a shame, but it's a fact of life that AM broadcasting costs a lot of money, and there are cheaper ways of doing it. I still think it might be a mistake in today's volatile world. When other platforms fail, when other infrastructure fails, radio can always be there. But it is what it is, and that's where we are. So what's left? Well, Algeria are still on 153, as are Romania, Antenna Satellor. There are still signals being transmitted from Mongolia to Mongolia, national radio services. There's the 164 kilohertz signal, which I think that's the one I've heard audio. I've copied audio on faint audio, and every now and then you see the carrier on one of my SDRs. So Morocco, Medi 1 from Nador, 171 kilohertz will still be there. Iceland will be gone. Radio 4 will be gone. Mongolia on 209 kilohertz, and Polski radio 225 are still around. And then you've got Mongolia again on 227. Denmark, Kaulenberg will be gone, and then you have Algeria again on 252, who became obviously much more prominent when RTE shut down on the same frequency. So there you go. There'll be 3 or 4 stations left on longwave in Europe and sort of North Africa. And how long will they be on air? I don't know. What's interesting is that I think Algeria is the largest country in Africa. It's huge. I can't remember if it's like 8 or 9 times bigger than the UK. Morocco is a relatively large country, and obviously longwave is useful for broadcasting over large distances. So I don't know whether that makes the longwave broadcasting model a better fit for countries such as Algeria and Morocco, where there might be less infrastructure and vast expanses of desert, etc. So maybe the transmission from Nador, Morocco, and Algeria on 153 and 252 kilohertz will remain. Obviously, the signal on 252 they broadcast in French. The 153 signal broadcasts in Arabic. So it's possible they will continue. Not sure about Poland. It's quite a large country. Be nice to imagine that they would stay, but and same for Romania. Antenna Satellor, I think it's basically a radio station that's the demographic is basically for people living out in the countryside. Effectively, I can't remember there's a literal translation, but it's like almost someone Romanian will correct me, but countryside radio effectively. So I'd like to think that there would still be a couple of stations on longwave in a few years from now, but who knows? I'm not sure. It'd be nice actually if new stations were to come back and come on and get on air, but again I think that's highly unlikely. But you never know. So there you go. So that's my brief summary of what's happened with longwave since I got back into radio. I can't say anything other than it's a little bit depressing, but it's a sign of the times and it's the way things are going. And as I said, the medium wave band is also emptying rather rapidly, and it's a real shame as far as I'm concerned. But maybe I'll do another video in the same vein in a year from now, and we'll and have another look. But I guess the technology has been around for more than 100 years, and there have been transmissions on longwave for I think for about 100 years. give or take. So it's quite amazing that what is essentially the same technology, the same fundamentals, the physics of the technology, is achieving the same thing. It's been around 100 years. That's when radio started. Well, at least broadcast transmission started about 100 years ago, and that although in rapid decline now, it's still with us. So there aren't many other areas of technology where where you can say, well, that tech's been around for 10 decades and still going. This is a video.
Anyway, that was Oxford Shortwave Log YouTube channel. Now, Ringway Manchester, a much more recent announcement. The actual announcement of the closure, which will occur on Saturday.
9 months ago, I made a video after a tip-off I received began to leak online from another source. The video explained that the BBC would switch off its Radio 4 longwave service on September the 26th, 2026. However, the BBC announced last week that Radio 4's longwave service will close down on the 27th of June 2026, much earlier than the original proposed date. Every time this comes up, the news stories centre around the Droitwich transmitting station, but what about the other two, Birkhead and Westerglen, that serve listeners in harder to reach areas? Well, it would appear that they're being switched off too. The BBC is broadcasting daily on-air reminders to encourage people to switch to other ways of listening. This will be difficult for the small number of listeners in areas with little to no internet service. The BBC has been talking about shutting off Radio 4 on longwave for a while now, but got serious about it in 2023 when it formally announced a plan citing rising costs, the age of the transmission equipment, energy costs, and of course declining listenership. It still maintains that the company that owns and operates the longwave broadcasting equipment has confirmed that the system is reaching the end of its life. I don't know where I sit on this. There are ways that the service could continue, and all of the people I've spoken to who work or worked in the broadcasting industry claim it could be done quite easily and relatively cheaply, the word relatively being key there. Either way, investing in upgrading the longwave equipment at Droitwich, Birkhead and Westerglen, the 3 remaining Radio 4 transmitters, is not considered a cost-effective solution for licence fee funded services. That's old chestnut. As I've said in other videos, some older electricity meters still use a system called the Radio Teleswitching Service, or RTS, that's carried within the 198 kHz signal from Droitwich. The RTS has been in place for over 40 years now and is run by the energy industry, not the BBC. At the last count in June 2025, there were still 800,000 homes in the UK still relying on this service, and the industry wasn't switching them to smart meters quickly enough. So that's it. After 90 years, BBC Radio 4 on longwave will cease, allowing the Droitwich, Birkhead and Westerglen transmitting stations to decline further towards retirement. As a radio enthusiast, it's always sad to see things change for the worst. My local MF site at Ashton Moss was demolished recently. I snuck out of a beachside barbecue one balmy summer's evening the other year to spend an hour capturing Pen Mon before it too was cut down. Perhaps I just don't like change. One article encapsulates this whole thing perfectly though. It said, a valuable radio service is set to shut down after nearly a century in a move that fans have labelled criminal. And that's it. Radio 4 on longwave no longer has a valid enough listener base. The people up in arms over its closure seem to be mainly fans of the service, or like me, fans of the infrastructure that provides it. I certainly don't listen to Radio 4, I just hate the thought of Droitwich and the others eventually being toppled. Tobias launched a fantastic campaign along with a petition and an unbelievably well-researched report, but most of the noise around this still came from fans. The fact is, listenership has declined. Most people in remote areas can receive other services. The broadcast infrastructure is ageing and isn't cheap to operate and maintain, so it's happening. On the plus side, Birkhead will continue to radiate BBC Radio Scotland on 810 kHz and Radio 5 Live on 693 kHz. Westerglen will continue to radiate BBC Radio Scotland also on 810 kHz, TalkSport on 1089 kHz, and Radio 5 Live on 909 kHz. And Droitwich will continue to radiate TalkSport on 1053 kHz and Radio 5 Live on 693 kHz. All of this, of course, will end in the next couple of years. So I thought, why not pay tribute to the service by looking at a potted history of Radio 4 on longwave. Droitwich actually entered service on the 7th of October 1934 with the national programme on 200 kHz at 150 kilowatts, but as I said, I just want to look back at the history of the Radio 4 longwave service. The BBC Home Service was the predecessor of Radio 4 and broadcast from 1939 to 1967. It had regional variations and was broadcast on medium wave with a network of VHF FM transmitters being added from 1955. I won't cover the entire history of Radio 4 as we'll be here all day, but rather just the longwave service. On September the 30th, 1967, the BBC, having been sent into an unprecedented spin by the pirate radio stations, launched its pop service, Radio 1. It did far more than break with tradition, and the old guard of the BBC didn't pretend to like this new innovation. It shattered the image nurtured by John Reith, the BBC's austere but admired first chief and director general. Pop dealt a sharp blow to the high ideals of public service broadcasting in terms of the old BBC, yet change was imperative. It meant expansion rather than decay. This time the public was to get what it wanted, rather than what was considered good for it. So why am I going on about Radio 1? Well, the BBC was soundly beaten in the pop music skirmish with the pirate stations. The offshore pirates had been recently banished by the Marine Offences Act, but their effect was acknowledged by the BBC, and it now needed to fill a gap. On the basis that if you can't beat the opposition, you join it, the BBC made a spectacular takeover bid for a hungry pop audience, and this takeover marked the relaunch of all its services. Radio 1 was the new pop service, Radio 2 replaced the former light programme, Radio 3 replaced the former third programme, and Radio 4 replaced the home service. On Thursday the 23rd of November 1978, as a result of international agreements aimed at avoiding interference, many of the BBC's frequencies changed. Radio 4 moved to longwave, taking over 200 kHz or 1500 meters, a frequency previously occupied by Radio 2. It's my understanding that this is when Birkhead and Westerglen entered service with their new Radio 4 transmitters. 22 million sticker cards like this were sent out to listeners before the changeover date, stickers you still find on second-hand radios today. The frequency change and additional transmitters meant that Radio 4 was now available across all of the UK for the first time, and the station officially became known as Radio 4 UK, a title that remained until the 29th of September 1984. It later moved to 198 kHz on the 1st of February 1988, where it remains today. And finally, I thought I'd leave you with some Droitwich Radio 4 transmitter facts and trivia you probably didn't know. On December the 17th, 1979, severe storms hit the region and strong winds damaged the antenna beyond repair. There was no service for 3 days while riggers battled high winds to replace it. January 1984 also saw storm damage take Radio 4 off the air. On the evening of the 6th of July 1983, Droitwich was struck by lightning and Radio 4 was off the air for 20 minutes while damage assessments were carried out. Tuesday the 28th of January 1992 saw thick ice form on the mesh covering the air inlets at Droitwich, causing everything to overheat, which in turn led to the transmitters being off the air for 6.5 hours. I recall an instance from July 1989 in which aircraft working Gloucester-Staverton Airport were allegedly wandering miles off course due to the strong transmission of Radio 4 from Droitwich. The BBC said it's not our fault, but the airport was convinced that the high-powered signal from the station was causing aircraft to veer up to 15 degrees off course. It would appear that the air navigation beacon at the airport, also known as an NDB, was being regularly affected by interference from Radio 4 at Droitwich. The answer, according to the BBC, was not to fly so close to the masts. While the BBC feel it's no longer economically viable to keep maintaining the transmitters, this wasn't always the case. Droitwich was shut down on September the 4th, 1985 for maintenance, leaving listeners to tune to the VHF Radio 4 service. The same thing happened on November the 18th, 19th and 25th, 1989, and for 7 days across August 1991. All day with a reduced power service on air at night time only. And that's a potted history of BBC Radio 4 on longwave, which in just over a month's time will disappear forever.
And obviously
9 months ago I made
that was recorded about a month ago because the BBC's longwave service from those 3 transmitter sites is going to close on Saturday. I hope some of you will be out there on web SDRs with your finger poised over the record button to record the very last of British longwave broadcasting. So now it's time for opening up our talk-in channel on 439225. Who is there? VK3AML calling.
VK3ACZ is there.
Oh, good stuff, Pete. Should mention I'm logging this week on a completely different arrangement of audio log, taking the split off the line to the transmitter rather than off the off-air monitor, because the transmitter adds a little bit of distortion and noise and the off-air monitor adds even more, so that the YouTube uploads have been a little compromised. Most people wouldn't notice it, but to somebody who's a bit of a stickler for audio quality, I've felt necessary to make the change. So there have been quite a few changes made in the shack to levels and amount of audio compression, and hopefully a little bit to the transmitted audio as well. So, how was your day? VK3ACZ, VK3AML.
And I left a pause there in case anybody else was going to join us. VK3AML, VK3ACZ. Well, I've not noticed any difference in audio quality. It's all sounded absolutely Mickey Mouse to me. And this afternoon I listened again to last night's broadcast just to make sure it actually happened, like I remembered it did. It was very good to have Jeff there with us as well, VJS.
Oh, yeah.
Now, a few things. Iceland, didn't know they had a longwave station. I quite like Ringway Manchester. He's the one who alerted me to the numbers stations, which I didn't know existed, despite a youth solidly listening to shortwave radio from around the world. There you go. Yes, we should all have black armbands for the demise of longwave. I naturally assumed it was all coming from Wooferton, but no, there are other places, Skelton and York and Droitwich and all that the BBC broadcast from, and up in Scotland as well. But as I've mentioned to you a few times, when driving around Ireland, I had the car radio on longwave the whole time, simply because I could, because it was something very different. And what jumped out at me listening to both of those people is what a lot of fun I would have had as a kid being a shortwave listener had I been in Ingaland.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. All those... I mean, even our medium wave listening that we've got here, the ABC is not all that interesting unless you get the broadcast from South Australia or WA, where we're half an hour and 2 hours behind. When it's just being relayed, it's not a great deal of fun. But to think that the equivalent of from here to VK4 would be halfway across Europe, I imagine there's a lot of opportunities for listening that would be very, very interesting. Mind you, if it's all in foreign languages, take back a lot of what I've said. But anyway, yeah, sad time to think that it's coming to an end, because as one of them said, DAB and FM and the like don't really cut it for the sort of nostalgia we're into. Anyway, a quick word up on tonight's activities. The 160 metre net was on, and I was eventually strength 5 into Ironstein, or is that Ironstone, SDR eventually. I didn't get out very well to any other SDRs, I might add, though. Didn't hear myself at all in ZL. The Hunter Valley SDR, whatever it is, halfway up the coast there, it wasn't too bad, but all in all, I don't know about signals. I put in a good word for the Master Blaster, who, as we know, is up in Cairns. And I got a text message photo from him today, which is a beautiful beach scene with palm trees.
Oh, the bastard.
And some do it tough. It says, well, I might be deprived of DX for now, but the reward is kind of nice. So I replied with, there's no reason to try and sugarcoat it. I know you're doing it tough, and you just don't want us to worry about you. Very considerate, but we know you're missing the 3 degrees overnight and 12 degrees overcast days down here. Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, so he must be having a lot of fun compared to us or frozen people. Now, a couple of other things too, Chris. The Chatham Islands STR is back in situ.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard myself on 40 and 80 this evening. Oh, I should have tried once. Well, no, if I wasn't getting to ZL, I wouldn't get to... Oh, by the way, when I first tested at 8:30, my signal was way down. Even when the net started at 9 p.m. Signals weren't all that great, but by 9:30, they really boosted. So,
as the D layer disappears, 160 comes online.
Oh, yeah, but I would have thought the D layer was well and truly gone by then, which makes me think it'll be interesting come summertime when it's still 9 p.m, it's still kind of light. And somebody else did mention during the net that they'd had a net on 1850 some time back that used to start at 8 p.m, and they found that it was only around about 9 that the band started to kick. So all that to say that I don't know an awful lot about it, so I'm learning as I go along. And that's a pretty long-winded sort of over for the first over.
That's fine.
What did you do with your day, Chris?
Not a great deal. I uploaded the last night's net, which I thought went very well with Jeff and yourself. But the audio quality gave me a bit of a pain. It's as a result of phase noise in the transmitter. The oscillator has a little bit of phase noise, which limits its maximum sig-to-noise ratio on audio to about 40, maybe 45 dB at the best. And there's a similar amount of phase noise off my off-air monitor, and it's been foolishness to record off the off-air monitor, particularly as people will be listening on internet in some cases with very good equipment. So I completely rewired the audio system for the shack so that the recorder now runs off the balanced line that goes into the transmitter isolation transformers. It doesn't go through the transformers, so it's getting the full frequency response. And the levels have been tweaked so that there's a bit more audio compression through my Behringer peak limiter, because I knowing that there's a limited amount of sig-to-noise available, you need to keep the levels up as best you can. I did notice the Behringer is not terribly good at intercepting all the audio peaks, so I have an old Omnimax that used to be used by the ABC, chucked out about 15 years ago when they moved out of Broadcast House. And I'll bring that online sometime the next few days, then I'll be able to push the level a little bit further up on FM without any distortion. I mean, it probably means very little to anybody who isn't listening with an audio amplifier directly off their discriminator, because they'll be hearing tailored frequency response out of a commercial rig. But to the few who are listening that way, and Steve 3SL is one, Frank 3JR is another, of course myself here, we're just aiming at getting audio that's just that little bit better than pure communication for that read bad quality. So I've been doing a lot of fiddling and a lot of soldering and a lot of rewiring, and the place is a god-awful mess. VK3ACZ, VK3AML.
3AML, 3ACZ. Well, you definitely don't want to listen to Dumbstar, do you?
No.
As I keep remembering or reminding each time I bring up the subject, listening to Greg QSL talking on it one night and not recognising his voice until he gave his call sign, says all you need to know. I just realised what I'm doing, well, why I'm not experiencing the same as you on this, Chris, is because I'm only listening to the whole thing on a Odie clone.
No.
I guess if I had good speakers and all the rest of it, I might be able to imagine what you're talking about, but I just can't. So, but take my comments not just as the ignorant, but as somebody who's very happy with the whole process. Love the whole crossband.
Well, I do check the quality by listening on the little 3-inch speaker on my what do they call it, the Bearcat
Yeah.
receiver scanner, and
that's still
it sounds relatively okay on that.
Yeah, it's a long way ahead of anything I'm likely to have
Mhm.
in the near distant future, but it probably seems a bit silly that I would actually listen to the previous evening's broadcast again in its in its completeness. But it doesn't hurt to be reminded of what was said. I was quite happy with my interjections there where I said that Leonsky was a much nicer person after he was hung. I'd forgotten that I'd said that and that he'd been rehabilitated and the like, but it doesn't hurt to hear it all again, especially as I struggle at the best of times, so it's reassuring to me that I'm not talking braille.
No, you're not.
No, I'm glad to hear that. But, I had a chance to be on 2 metres earlier tonight too, because the Nazi who has banned me from the slops bucket net normally appears on this net on a Tuesday. And
Kyle.
Yeah, he'd given advance warning that he wasn't going to be there, so I was allowed to venture forth and to be present.
Yes.
To find out, one of the people there is an aero engineer, and he was telling me that, and he works for Quaintas on the engineering side of it, repair side of it. He said they're bringing out a whole new series of A350 scare buses, and he said they were very, very nice. It described a few of the new plus features of them.
Like?
Almost makes me want to jump on an aeroplane.
For example, which new feature?
Super comfortable seats was one of the things, and if you're cooped up in cattle class like I always am, that's significant. Most of the features went I didn't commit them to memory, but it sounded very nice. Mind you, I had a couple of trips in the 380 scare bus, which I'd always said I'm not going to fly in one until a few have crashed, because otherwise how will they iron out all the bugs?
Yes.
But they obviously got very lucky up at Singapore there with, what was it, Qantas, was it Flight 19 or?
Like yourself, I've probably seen one too many air crash investigations.
Oh, they're terrible. Don't they play merry hell with your psyche? Things like forgetting to take the covers off the pitot tubes causes a plane to crash. Oh, goodness me.
And a single screw in part of the wing snapping causes a plane to crash with a loss of 150 lives. I mean,
yes. A la the DC-10. Yeah, amongst others.
Or even worse than that, back in the early 50s when they had pressurised cabins for the first time, and there was one particular plane, I think it was called the Brabazon, which was projected as the great new consumer-priced jet aircraft, the first one to be put into commercial operation in Britain, I think. And they found that with repeated pressurizations and depressurizations, the skin of the aircraft would crack, and eventually a window would blow out, and then the whole top of the plane had come off. So they had a long way to go.
Yeah, there's a couple I can't get out of my mind. And one is that pilot who got sucked out of the windscreen.
Oh, yeah. Didn't he survive? I think he survived.
He did, yeah. His assistant was holding on to his ankles for a long time to stop him disappearing completely. And, of course, the poor fellow who was sitting near a door and of a 747, and the door got blown off, and of course he went with it, seat and all. His last thoughts would have been rather awful, I would imagine.
Yes, I bet you're saying this now because Steve 3ZH isn't with us to go on the plane the next day.
Yeah. Well, I certainly confirmed that he got there all right.
Good.
Yes, I sent a text message to him while he was in the air and got a response to it later. But I'm sure he's having a great time. It did get to 26 today in Cairns, and so he, I think there'd been 0.3 of a millimetre of rain the day before or something, so he'd be having a good time. You know, the one thing I remember about Cairns is the fruit bats. come sunset, the sky just filled with them, and I'd think to myself, my goodness, I wouldn't want to be taking off from Cairns Airport, because how do these things not get sucked into the air intakes of the jets? Because we know what a couple of geese did to a plane in New York taking off from Newark, I think it was, with good old Solly in charge, where he landed in the Hudson River.
It's amazing that nobody was killed on that.
Oh, and to think too that people in the stimulator had trouble doing what he did with the real plane afterwards. But,
incredibly lucky.
Ably impersonated by Tom Hanks in a movie. Trouble was the movie, I think, was directed by Dirty Harry. That'd be right. Good old Clint, baby.
Clint Eastwood, yes. And he always... he does films where typically one rebel in an organisation stands up to the organisation and wins, and that was typical of that sort of subplot.
For reasons completely from left field, Sully copped a bit of opposition from his department, his company heads, which is kind of odd, because you think he'd be regarded as the complete hero, as he was by the people that were in the plane with him. I got the privilege of sitting and looking out at the spot where the plane was supposed to have landed. And, yes, there were bits of ice floating on the river that day. I was looking at it because I was there the week before Christmas.
Yeah.
So
it's an extraordinary place, New York. It's so cold in winter that it gets snow, but in summer, apparently the humidity combined with heat can be really oppressive.
Oh, it was the worst heat I've ever had in my life there, simply because it was 42 degrees, and whilst, yes, I've had 46 a few times, but not with tropical humidity.
No.
It actually had the tropical bite to it, so it was, the worst I've ever experienced.
On the few occasions it goes over 40 here, at least it's dry heat.
Yeah, and London, whilst it never got above 30, it had the tropical humidity as well, so that was super unpleasant. But no, New York, that's something else. It must be the Gulf jet streams or something like that.
Yeah, I lived 2 years in Launceston, which in the city, which is in a deep valley at the head of the Tamar River, and it gets, during the day frequently in winter, persistent fogs, because they get this local temperature inversion that traps all the moisture in. And although the temperature is rarely above, in the old measures, 75 degrees, maybe 25 Celsius, it gets really oppressively sticky. And I was surprised to find that in any Tasmanian town. Didn't experience that in Hobart, but definitely in Launceston, strangely enough. They also get bitterly cold weather in winter there. Hello to Launceston if there's a duct going.
Well, the other strange thing about New York, and I'm so grateful that I've been there in the height of summer as well as winter, so I've been at both ends of it. In winter, I was there and it never got up to zero. And of course, they don't call it that there, it's 32. But it stayed around 20 to 26 Fahrenheit for the week that I was there. But they forecast the snow down to the hour it's going to fall. Yep. And they're always right. And I guess because it comes across the land so that they can pick it from the observation stations. That's my guess anyway, because they would say it'll it'll snow at 3 p.m. And sure, and as anything, it would. But you don't... the snow stops being the fun that it is on the rare occasions we get it here, because it turns to slush, especially on the well-worn streets of New York City. So you slip and slide all over the place. I bet a lot of people end up in hospital. I saw a fun fact for Gay Paris. Oh, I shouldn't have used that first word, but for Paris. And honestly, I thought my experience of Paris was that it was a shithole, and that's the best I can say for it.
Really?
But there's something like a couple of hundred people get admitted to hospital every year for slipping on dog turds. But no. If you've been there, you know why. Because they are everywhere. It's true. And it's because everybody's apartment living, they take their dogs out to the street to have a dump.
And they don't use a pooper scooper, obviously.
Well, they might be doing it now, because I'm surprised how much compliance you get around the suburbs here. I always see people walking past here with their little plastic bag to pick up the droppings.
I think that's one of the things that puts me off having a dog, actually.
Oh, well, that's where my station manageress is so good. I mean, to see her very carefully make a hole, do her stuff, and then carefully cover it over is very encouraging.
Yes.
Mind you, a couple of times she did leave dumps on the carpet in here. So, but she's been good for quite a while now. So, so you can, if you ever hear that fun fact about Paris, you can believe it, because there are dog turds everywhere.
The city of romance and dog turds. Okay.
I've never understood why it's called the city of love, because first of all, I didn't love it, but I was overwhelmed by the fact that it was my fault. I didn't speak the lingo, and you don't see street signs in English and French.
No, they're very chauvinistic about their language.
Yeah, at least I didn't. And, I was relying on my late beloved to interpret things, but she was getting by on her high school French. She wasn't well versed in the language either, but it is true that when people found out you're Australian, they tried their best to help. And that was the other frustrating thing too, that everybody in France since, my age for a long time, English has been taught, and everybody except the elderly knows English. They won't talk it to you. Quite understandably. But
a lot of other, particularly the better educated European countries, have English as a second language taught in primary school.
Yeah, and I'm very grateful that they do, because amateur radio would be a whole lot more boring without the chance to talk to Delta Lemas and Papa Alphas and all the...
I think that applies to Germany. Most Germans have at least a smattering of English. The Scandinavian countries can usually speak it fluently. Finland, Norway, and Sweden, Denmark, I think. Italy, it depends. If you're in the northern Italy cities, you'd probably find people speaking English, but if you're down near the foot at the bottom of Italy, sort of thing, probably less likely to find people talking it. Greece, I don't know. 3HFX might be able to tell us a bit more about that. Is there anybody else who'd like to come on 439225? This is VK3AML standing by.
Yeah, I am listening through HFX here, and I can say that in 2007 I lived in Paris, right in the Marais, for 3 months, and I hear a lot of stuff said about Paris, and usually I disagree with all of it. In Greece, nearly everybody speaks English, as you say, except the older people.
Yeah. I've known a few Greek people who come mostly from the islands to Australia for some strange reason. I have a friend, Con, who moved here from Corfu, of all places, and I really, having seen films of Corfu, I had to ask Con whether his parents were actually in their right mind when they decided to come out here. But apparently the opportunities for advancement there in terms of earning decent money are fairly limited, and I think Con's parents came out here in the 50s in pursuit of something a little bit better for their kids. So maybe things have changed there. I know that the Greek immigration was fairly high during the late 40s and 50s, but it's tapered right off now. There used to be huge masses of Richmond, particularly along Bridge Road near the Richmond Hill, where the predominant language you'd see in the cafes there would be Greek. Likewise Preston, but not so much anymore.
Well, people have moved and have spread out a lot now. I mean, Lonsdale Street used to be just about every shop was run by Greeks, for Greeks, but now it's basically Chinese and Vietnamese. So people move, a lot of the Greeks moved down to Oakley.
Yeah.
And yes, of course, the inner suburbs, Northcote, Fitzroy, Richmond, contained a lot of migrants, Greeks, Italians and various others. And over the years, of course, the ethnic makeup of various suburbs has changed. For example, Footscray saw a lot of Italians and people in the early days, 40 or 50s, and then it became essentially Vietnamese, and then now it's trending towards Africans and things like that. So there's been a shift in population. And right, of course, as you said, Corfu, if they left in the 50s, that's understandable. There wasn't much happening in the 50s on those islands, the Ionian Islands, Corfu being at the top. And as you go down the coast, all those islands, one of which is where I was born, and my father came out here in the 50s, that's right. But when Greece entered the EU, of course, things changed considerably. So nowadays, there are people who leave and go overseas, but they tend not to be permanent migrants. People go, like they go to other countries, they go to America, they go to Germany and places like that, and, they work for 5 years and then they go back. Whereas a lot of the migrants who came in the 50s, most of them, of course, stayed. Same with Italians and many other people.
Yeah. I'm a bit lucky in terms of the taste for Greek food, because my main computer supplier is actually in Oakley. Prue and I, whenever we have computer troubles that I can't fix, that happens about once every 12 months, we take the computer down there, and I would kill for halloumi chips, particularly from Nico's. Perhaps I shouldn't say that, that's an advertisement. Okay, I'll withdraw the statement. But the Greek food I particularly like, particularly, the fish that we get down there. So, Peter, any comments?
Yes, good evening to Harry. Decanis. Harry, obviously your impression of Harry was vastly different to mine. Please enlighten me on what you liked about it. I'll just say one thing. My impressions were formed on the basis that I didn't know the lingo, which is my fault, certainly not theirs. And nobody should have to accommodate me if I'm too dumb and silly to learn the language before I go there. But it was just sitting in the motel of an evening and wanting to unwind by watching TV wasn't possible because there was no SBS with the subtitles and all that sort of stuff. So, and the other thing was, it seems like that carcinogenic habit that it's designed to kill people and it's very expensive. It's like it's compulsory in Paris. I couldn't find anywhere to sit in a restaurant to eat a meal. My wife and I were buying our food takeaway and going down into the subway to eat it. But anyway, so Harry, please let me know what's redeemable about Paris. Oh, one last thing too. The Arc de Triomphe is a funny place to sit to watch all the car smashes, because nobody knows who to give way to. It's a circle around the Arc de Triomphe, and I don't know, it's something like about 8 feeders into it. But over to you, Harry.
You there, Harry? Looks like it's yours, Pete.
No, it's all right. Here I am.
Go ahead, Harry.
Yeah, look, it would take too long now to talk about Paris, and I understand what you're saying, and of course, yes, we too sat, in a cafe. We sat in cafes every day, of course, because where I was living was right on the Seine, and we used to walk across the bridge and the islands to the left bank, which historically, of course, is the most famous place in Paris, where Hemingway and Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir, wrote their books in those cafes, the Dumago and Café de Flore and places like that, and to sit there and have breakfast. Oh, well, somebody smoking next to you, I can put up with it. It was outside anyway, so it didn't really matter that much. But anyway, yeah, it would take too long. We didn't know the language either, but you got by with a few words, and people spoke English. We didn't experience any of the problems that people seem to talk about. Of course, it all depends how long you're there for. That is another problem. A lot of the people I know, they say, we're there for 3 days, and this happened and that happened. Well, we were there for 3 months, so different kettle of fish altogether.
I'm glad to hear that, and yes, I'm guilty of that, Harry, because I was only there for I think it was 4 days. So yeah, wouldn't have been able to do it justice. But no, I was still interested in your observations and all that. And look, it's called the City of Love, so there's an attraction to it. I just didn't get it while I was there. But some wonderful classic old buildings. I even enjoyed Notre Dame Cathedral, even though I'm not much into Roman Catholic stuff, because the sculpture of all the stuff looks pretty intimidating and the like. But so, yeah, history-wise, well, for example, Notre Dame, what goes back to the 1180, I think they started constructing that. So I got off on the history of the place, Harry.
No, quite right, yes. There's a lot of history there. In the Marais, where I was living, I mean, if you want history, whether it's old or whether it's newer, I was living in a street where 2 streets away was where Jim Morrison from the Doors died. The church in St. Paul in the Marais was built back in something like the 1400s, and was still open. You could walk in there and just sit down for 5 minutes if you wanted some peace and quiet and somewhere to sit. And so many other places. I mean, the history is just everywhere, so you could really soak it up if you're interested. And we were there, as I say, for 3 months, and we went to just about every place. On Facebook, there's a site called Dreaming of Paris, and often they talk about this place and that place, and just about every place they talk about, I've actually been, which is really funny because it sort of reminds me of the place, and it was just the best of times, 3 months, and the person I was with, it was the city of love in many, many different ways, and the books we read, and there's a book called let's see, what's it called? Paris in the 50s by Stanley Carno. Yeah, if you want to read that, and it tells you a lot about Paris and why it is the way it is, and how to enjoy it, and what there is to see.
Oh, very good. Now, this experience I had, or what I saw, wouldn't be strange for anywhere in Europe, I wouldn't think, but near where the catacombs are, there's a big roundabout with that, I'm trying to remember what the memorial sculpture was. Might have commemorated the Franco-Prussian War or something like that, but anyhow, there was a police car there, and it was a tiny little Fiat sort of thing, 3 coppers in it. All 3 of them had MP5 submachine guns across their laps. You really know you're in another world, because I talked the other night on here about how I watched a payroll van delivering money to, cash, I presume, safe boxes to a bank, and one of the 2 people had a handgun in his hand, pointed down at 45 degrees the whole time, where they were taking the stuff from the van into the bank. So yeah, I get where, thankfully, not quite as savvy as a lot of other places are with the presence of submachine guns and the like, but that was one thing I noticed.
Yeah, look, the life in Paris. I mean, in the arrondissements, which is the sort of central Paris, and they call it inside the ring road, which is all what they call the arrondissements. When you consider how many millions of people, I can't remember now how many live there in such a small area. And when I first got there, my friend had been before, and one night we were going to dinner across town, and I said, "Oh, we better start getting ready." And she said, "What for?" And I said, "Because I was thinking Melbourne. You've got to get ready like an hour before you need to get to some place." And she said, "No. Well, it's going to take like 5 minutes to get there." I said, "What, across town?" She said, "Yes." And, it took 7 minutes. So it's a completely different thing. And as far as the police are concerned, in Paris, France, they pay a lot of taxes, unlike here. And governments spend a lot of money. There's a lot of police. Police travel always in threes. And yes, they have different levels of policing. I can't remember all the different names now, but some of them, and they're always around. Some of them are just normal sort of like constable types, and others are more like the SAS rather than police. And those people, carry machine guns. And the other things about all the buildings, like here today or yesterday, I read in the Age that the convent down in the Abbotsford convent is going to become derelict or something because there's no money to sort of like keep it going as an art precinct. Well, in Paris, people give their houses to the state, or to the city, I should say, and it's turned into a museum, and it's funded. There are museums everywhere that used to be like rich people's houses. Every corner you turn, there's a museum, because the state puts a lot of money into the arts and things like that, unlike here, of course.
Yeah, it looks like I pursued that museum studies thing in the wrong country. Fascinating. And that Paris in the 50s that you talked about, up to about 5 years ago when he died, we had a friend, Bob Klempner, who was with Erwin Rado, was one of the pioneers of establishing the Melbourne Film Festival. And he had spent several years in Paris during the 50s. Bob, in the 50s, he was born in 1930, so he would have been in his 20s then, and he was a prominent, reasonably low-key, but he was a communist. So wherever he went, the Australian government, later the French government, kept their eye on him. And one of his friends in Paris in the 50s, he never had it off with her, but he always regretted that he hadn't. I remember him talking about it. There was a girl, a very attractive Australian model, who was in Paris living the high life, called Valley Myers. And in the end, she had her face tattooed, and she kept a series of lovers who were about 40 years younger than herself, right up to the time of her death. Lived in America a lot of the time later on, but she ended her career making jewellery in a little office, a jeweller's office in the Capitol Theatre building, up one of the upper floors, I think, in the city, or it could have been the Nicholas building, I'm not sure which. But apparently Bob wanted to make films, and apparently if you went to Paris in the 50s, you could very easily get access to and mix with the French New Wave people who were making a big splash in, how could you describe them, semi-documentary, ultra-realist films of the late 50s and early 60s.
Something else I just remembered, the subway trains have rubber tyres. Which is rather cool, and it was the first place I saw a driverless train. Because I remember waiting on a platform, subway platform, and the train came in. I thought, oh my goodness, the driver's got about 10 people up the front with him. And then I noticed you could see right through the train, and there was no driver. So everybody who had their faces pressed to the windscreen looking at where they were going. the catacombs, Harry, were well worth a look to. I liked being as sombre as it is, with rows of femurs and rows of skulls and all that. The idea, Chris, if you're not familiar, in the 1700s, the cemeteries were leaking into the Paris's water table, so they exhumed a whole lot of the graves and put them in this sort of dungeon type thing 20 metres underground, and they did a bit of artwork on lining up all the
skulls
bones.
and I've seen photographs.
Yeah, it was quite
I believe a lot
sombre.
of the medical skeletons that are used by faculties in medical schools are derived from skeletons that are reassembled from what's in the catacombs.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I went to the catacombs, as I say, on that website on Facebook, Dreaming of Paris, every time they mention the place, I feel like that Australian song, I've Been Everywhere, man, because basically every place they talk about. I have actually been there. They say, don't miss this particular museum that hardly anybody goes to. And of course, I've been there and I've got dozens of photographs here of exactly that same place. And the catacombs, yes, and also, like Père-Lachaise Cemetery. I spent a whole day in that cemetery. It's such an interesting place, and there are so many interesting things to see and do in Paris, and surrounds. Of course, Versailles, and yes, the public transport system is amazing. Got there, we were going to the train. And I heard the train coming and I started rushing. And she said, what are you rushing for? I said, catch the train. She said, don't worry, there'll be another one along in 3 minutes. Sure enough, there was, that's how it runs. Completely different setup to Melbourne. Not that I have anything against Melbourne. I love Melbourne. I call this paradise. But, it's a completely different life in Paris.
Harry, did you notice that the cemeteries are full of cats?
Yes. There's cats everywhere and things like that. I can't remember. We spoke to somebody about that, and they told us the history of all that, but I really don't remember now.
Did you, Harry, see the grave of former French President Felix Faure at the Père-Lachaise Cemetery? That's the one that's intrigued me. I don't know whether you know the story of Felix Faure, but it's quite funny. He was the Premier of France in the 1890s, and he had a mistress who apparently was rather athletic, and he was getting on a bit. He was born in 1841, so he would have been in his late 60s, but apparently she used to go into his office, and they would do it. And one day in February 1899, they did it a little bit too strenuously, and he died in the act. Now, in the Père-Lachaise Cemetery...
What a way to go.
Yes, well, I hope he came before he went. There's an effigy of him on top of his grave with a sheet discreetly placed across him in an attitude of sleep. People polish the little bulge in the middle of the sheet. So, there is all sorts of interesting way people popped off in Paris. I've no doubt that people have died on the job here too, but...
Lee Snedden did.
Yes, that famous Truth headline, Snedden dies on the job. But that's one of the few instances I'm aware of. Anyway, that's one of the attractions of the Père-Lachaise Cemetery. It came into a video I had to throw together at one stage on filmmaking in the 1890s. And of course, the French were very much to the fore with that, because the Lumieres were based in Lyon, south of Paris. So Paris was one of the first cities to be extensively filmed. And at the time cinema was invented, 1895-96, Felix Faure was the president, and a lot of official ceremonies, he was filmed, welcoming people from other countries. The Prime Minister of England, Gladstone, etc., etc. But he popped off in a most scandalous way. Back to you, Harry.
We went to quite a few cemeteries, but we checked out all the arts people, the film stars, Edith Piaf, Jim Morrison's grave, which of course has to have a security guard permanently there, and lots of other people that were in that cemetery, and also the one around near the catacombs. I forget that name. There's Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir and various rock stars are there and things like that. So I don't know the grave you're talking about, but there are a lot of very, very interesting mausoleums and statues and things, of course, in those cemeteries. They're very ornate. That's why they're so interesting to look at. Anyway, listen, I'm going to go back on the side because I want to finish what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I'll keep listening to you guys.
Prattling on.
From the side. So that's me for now.
Okay, thanks for popping in, Harry. I understand that a lot of people have to get things prepared for the next day late at night, so it's just probably a little unfortunate, the time slot that we occupy here. But it's really, in practice, it's one of the few time slots I can guarantee that I'll be home. We go out to dinners with friends earlier on. I'm usually home by about 10:30, so that's one of the reasons that I've made a practice of popping up very late at night, because I know I can stagger from here into the bedroom, and Prue, as long as I'm not too outrageously late, is not going to be offended. Anyway, the Père Lachaise Cemetery. I have an idea that Oscar Wilde is buried there too, because I think he died in Paris with his famous last words, either the wallpaper goes or I do. You can guess what happened. Over to you, Pete.
Well, 3AML, 3ACZ, and if you don't come back, Harry Kelly, Nickdar. But I'm really surprised because I've had the attitude since taking off from Charles de Gaulle Airport. Oh, mind you, the security staff at Paris Airport stole a jumper of mine. It was an Essendon football jumper, and they insisted that I take it off and it go through the X-ray machine. And I should have figured it out why, because one of them wanted it, and I saw him bundle it up and remove it. By the time I'd kicked up a big enough fuss and threatened to not get on the aeroplane and all that, they'd have to take my luggage off. The gendarmes turned up, and of course the locker that I saw the security guy put the jumper in, when they opened it, the jumper was no longer there. So I thought, if they're that petty that they even steal at Paris's major airport, the security staff do, I don't want to go back there. And I've had a loathing for the place ever since, not for that reason, but just as I said. And by the way, the restaurants they weren't just, free to pollute the air. It was thick with there was a fog and it was sickening. But you know what? It's only taken this talk about it tonight for me to completely reverse my thinking. I'm starting to think, maybe it wasn't so bad. Maybe I could or would go back there. But I think what I would do this time is, rather than depend on just one other person with rudimentary high school French to rely on. And I did get sick of saying, what does that sign say? Well, that's the Rue des Remarques. No, I would do a tour. I think that would do more justice to it if I had everything explained to me by a local. So that's my thought about Paris anyway. I'm glad the subject came up. I'm not sure how we started on it. And the other thing was that I was very fond of the cemetery. I went and there were a couple of famous authors there, and I don't remember who they were now. But I didn't see Morrison's grave, so I don't think I was at that cemetery, but I was amazed at how many cats there were, and quite friendly, a lot of them too. So it's, with my interest in pussycats, it was a nice place to be. And the other thing is like other places in Europe, the dates are something that take you by surprise. Seeing greys with 1600 and something on it, or the likes, is much different to anything we're used to seeing here. I mean, in the old Willie Cemetery, where they removed a whole heap of bodies that had died, I don't know, coming up the bay or on boats, and then were dumped in the repository, the back beach there. They were all removed to the Williamstown General Cemetery in the 70s, and I remember seeing, something around 1850 was a real, shock. Man, that was back, at the beginning of the universe sort of thing. So, yeah, Europe tells you that you've really been, that we've been here a long time, and Australia can't compare with the history. Not our history anyway. Apologies to the first inhabitants who've been here for thousands of years, of course.
I mean, the oldest thing that I've seen personally is in a cave up the Franklin River, where in an area which is now so wet and cold and lacking in game that people can live on, it's uninhabited, but it was inhabited in the ancient past. There were handprints on the walls, people basically saying I was here, and they would make a fire. They'd pick up charcoal out of the fire, stick a bit of it in their mouth, chew it up, and then spit it over their hand. So they'd make these handprints on the wall. And I saw them. I saw some of the handprints there, up this branch of the Gordon River, basically, middle of nowhere, wet, semi-temperate rainforest. And anyway, after I had been there, that was back about 1980, they chiselled off a little bit of the charcoal and did a radiocarbon date on it. 18,000 years. Whoever had put those handprints up there had been there, 3 times the age of the pyramids?
Yeah.
That gives you a thought.
That's a bit confronting. I got off on the being shown a hue and pine that was 2,000 years old on the Franklin cruise. I thought that was cool, but no, seeing stuff that old is, wow.
Yeah, the interesting thing about the hue and pine, and I worked at the Tas Uni for 12 months, 1979, in the Centre for Environmental Studies. I did some work on the cost of installing wind for generating and wind for pumping, small wind in places in Tasmania that weren't already covered by the Hydroelectric Commission. And so I travelled around there quite a bit, and they had the botany department was behind our department, just on the upside of Churchill Avenue, Sandy Bay. And I would go over there, and just being insatiably curious, I'd visit people like Mrs. Hickman, who was the lady in charge of the spider section of zoology, and she'd have some rather fearsome specimens in her office. And I particularly remember Eric Geiler, who did a lot of work on the Tasmanian devil. They had an enclosure outside my office window, cyclone wire enclosure that had a couple of Tasmanian devils in it, and you'd be working overtime in the office, writing mail, not email in those days, but snail mail, to various places abroad, getting quotes for wind generators and solar panels, which were very expensive in those days. We're talking 1979. And these things would start howling, and it was like a banshee out of hell. there quietly run. Suddenly you hear this. It sounded like an old man having a heart attack, except much louder. They were obviously having a bit of a fight over a bit of meat or something, but they do have a fearsome yell. They look cute, but when you see them eat a rabbit and they chomp down and swallow the bones as well as the flesh, you don't want to get your hand near their mouths. They have pretty fearsome bite.
I can confirm the sounds that they make too from being in the Tassie bush, but you also pick their scat too because it's full of bits of bone. They chew it all up.
What I was getting to, though, in the botany section, they had a series of garden beds where they would establish Tasmanian endemics to show people. And the Huon pines down in the southwest, they grow in very poor soil. There's so much rainfall, feet rather than inches per year, that all of the nutrients in the soil disappear. So in their native environment in the southwest of Tasmania, the Huon pines grow very slowly, and they also grow very twisted, as you've probably seen. Well, they transplanted a Huon pine into the garden beds at the University of Tasmania, and in 15 years, the damn thing grew absolutely straight in this well-fertilised soil, and it was about 15 feet high. I couldn't believe it. When they're given a bit of nutrient, they grow like any other tree. But down in the southwest of Tasmania, as you saw, cold environment, very wet, poor soil, they grow very slowly. Over to you, Pete.
One of the funny things about the Franklin was the visual impression that you get where because of the tannins in the water, it's very opaque. And you can't
colour of tea.
Yeah, you can't see where the water line ends and the and the surface starts. I'm having trouble trying to describe it. You know what I mean? Did you see that?
Yes.
It's a perfect reflection. You can't tell where the water's edge is.
Yeah,
that was amazing to see. And I have to ask, Chris, I absolutely have to ask, you'll probably wish I didn't, but I want to know your thoughts on the tiger. Is he still there? Are the sightings are the sightings made by loonies, or do you think the tiger still exists?
In the time I was living there, I lived in different parts of Tasmania between 1977 and 1983. Initially Flinders Island for 6 months, then Hobart for 18 months in Battery Point, very nice time of my life, and then finally in Launceston for 2 years doing a research project, and I was stationed at the Queen Victoria Museum at Launceston, lived there, not at the museum, just up the hill from there. But that's a very good question. There are parts of Tasmania into which virtually nobody ever ventures. The bush is thick. There's not much to find in there, not many minerals. Unless you're in the west coast, then you can find a lot of stuff. But that's not where the tiger would probably survive, because the tiger likes open country, or country that's easy for something the size of a dog to range through. I, many years ago, met a farmer who was not given to an exaggeration, a farmer and his wife, who lived at a place that was somewhere south of Smithton. I'm trying to think of the name. It was just it's a locality name. It's not an actual town. There are quite a few places in Tasmania which might have been towns in the 1850s or 60s, but now they're just a collection of farms spread out. Anyway, Lyalea, that was the name of the place, Lyalea. If you look it up in a map, it's really in a remote part of northwest Tasmania, a long way inland, near the Tarkine. And this couple in about 1959 were driving home from a dance at Smithton and saw they were able to describe the animal and its movements to the point where there was no doubt that they had seen a Tasmanian tiger. But that is 65, 70 years ago, and since then there's been a lot of baiting, 1080 poisons put out for foxes and, you know, other creatures by farmers, and it's likely that if they do survive out there, I just hope nobody ever lets on where they are.
Well, that's the thing. If I were fortunate, or as the case may be, unfortunate enough to see one, I don't know that I could tell anybody, because your credibility would be shot like poo out of a Shanghai, wouldn't it? The number of people who just wouldn't believe it. Of course, there are other ways of getting proof, but given the fact that looking at the way AI works these days, you would be held up to ridicule no matter what you did, I suspect. So it's a tragedy that they're all gone, or seem to be all gone. We're not without our own controversy, of course. Here in VK3, we've got people forever seeing huge cats, jaguars and the like. So
yeah, Maddie could tell you about that, because apparently there have been some so-called panther sightings down his way near Inverloch. Yeah, which I find hard to believe, given the open nature of the area. It'd be one thing to be up in the Wonangatta and just below the snow line and say that you saw a big leopard, jaguar, cougar, whatever. But you ever been up there?
All sorts of places, yes, but I've never seen any big cats, I might add.
So I know that Wonangatta is a very isolated farm with pasture in a very isolated part of the Alps, but what's it like up there? Is it, I mean, inhabited or what?
Inhabited. It's a popular deer shooting area, and because some of it is national park, you're actually allowed to hunt sambar deer in various national parks.
Considered vermin.
Yep. But most of my travels were aimed at Mount Howard. I was fascinated with that. And of course, there's the famous murder in 1919 related to Wonangatta Station. So that's another story again. But for the most part, it's all really heavy, thick scrub. But the higher you get up towards the snow line and therefore the end of the tree line and all that, the vegetation changes a lot. So it's open. More or less clearings. I'm finding it difficult to get the words to describe it all. I love that region, but I wouldn't go playing ham radio up there, or at least not with a girlfriend while Captain Jetstar's in the vicinity.
Yeah, I believe it would be a good place to do ham radio from, though. I have a friend, one of my early mentors was Hugh Patton, who was then VK3ZEP. This is back in the 60s. He's about 8 years older than me. He'd be about 80 now. But I knew him in his late teens, early 20s, when he was down here doing electrical engineering at RMIT. And he subsequently worked at Philips in the development of the FM 900, of all things. So he knows the FM 900 series backwards and forwards. But he eventually left electronics to take on the family farm at a place called Nurungong, which is in the Tallangatta Valley. Sort of, if you look at Lake Hume, it's sort of south and somewhat to the east in a valley in the hills. But right south of that, in almost the middle of the Alpine country, is an old deserted mining town called Glen Wills. And he used to take, in the 60s, late 60s, he used to take 2 metre and 6 metre gear up to Glen Wills with a little, portable, rotatable beam, Jenny motor and a valve AM transmitter that he built himself. Of course, 1967, even on VHF, most people were using AM. And once or twice during the summer, he'd get through to New Zealand from up there when the particularly on 6 when the conditions were right. This is late 60s, would have been close to a sunspot maximum as well. But we still are in touch via Facebook fairly constantly and face-to-face about once a year. Back to you, Pete.
Yeah. Oh, dare I ask you, Chris, what would you do if you were, this is a Jeffrey Robertson hypothetical, if you were to be in the Tassie bush somewhere and you did come across one of the tigers, do you think you could tell people what you saw?
I would go straight to the zoology section of TasUni and inform them, who would probably inform nobody, but they would do a good investigation. The first thing they would probably do was to take a infrared camera capable of night vision to whatever locality it was and stick the infrared camera there. God knows what that has revealed of different animals. I know that they've found isolated populations of the quoll, the Tasmanian tiger cat. There are 2 different species. There's a quoll and a tiger cat. They're both marsupial little creatures, rather nasty little things. I once camped on the southwest coast of Tasmania, south of Macquarie Harbour, with a group who were doing archaeological site reconnaissance. This is on the Christmas New Year of 1979-80. And one of the guys was silly enough to take a lot of our food in a what do you call them? An esky. Polyurethane container. And we heard all this growling and crunching going on during the night and wondered what the hell it was. We thought it was just 2 quolls having a fight, but they weren't. What they were doing was literally demolishing the polyurethane container to get at the food, and the whole of the campsite looked like a snowstorm had hit it the next morning. All that was left of the polyurethane container. I think they might have swallowed some of it too.
Oh, I remember driving around Tas in the early 90s, and there were quolls and the native cat carcasses everywhere. The roadkill in Tasmania seems to be way above anything I've seen. Oh, and a few devils as well were squashed. Yeah. So I've not quite seen anything like it. Oh, I suppose the Newell Highway up the top end of New South Wales is littered with lots and lots of kangaroos. I remember one time being reduced to about 60 kilometres an hour because there were so many roos on and around the road. So I thought I'd get smart when a great big VW went past. I thought I'd be a smarty and got right up its rear and was in smug mode. Every so often you'd see a kangaroo bounce off, fly out to the side. Until I had about half a second to notice one laying on the road that had gone under the truck. And crunch. Up we went, and of course I thought it would have ripped the sump right out. But anyhow, but going back to down there at Tassie, you raised an interesting possibility there that the official didn't know about tigers, and of course they wouldn't release it to the public because every man and his dog would be down there hunting them in one form or another. So
I think also the worry is that if there is a surviving population, the gene pool is so small that they're heavily inbred. And I think for that reason that in the distant future, with a Jurassic Park sort of situation, it is conceivable that they have a number of Tasmanian tiger cubs and embryos and immature ones at pinky pouch stage in, what do they call it? Not ether, alcohol.
Formalin.
Yeah, something like that. And they could extract, they're 1860s, 70s, 80s. I think the last one died in captivity in Hobart in 1936. But there are sufficient number of sources of DNA that you could, if you could somehow synthesize it into some other modern animal, you could recreate.
Clone them.
In the distant future, yeah.
Yeah, well,
It'd take a lot more biological science than we have at the moment, but it's not to say it can't be done.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to go full steam ahead with a conspiracy theory or anything like that, but you got to consider that it is a possibility, albeit a faint one. In a similar vein, I once rang up the ABC radio. It does have, what's his name, from Launceston, 4 o'clock in the morning. He's an astronomy fellow, Martin George. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, good heavens, I met him when he first got the job in Launceston. I remember the week he started. That was
he's still
35 years ago.
Yeah, well, until recently, I haven't listened to him in a few months. But
very enthusiastic guy, speaks very fast.
One morning a week at about 4 a.m. he comes on to give a 10 to 15 minute talk for the ABC presenter on radio overnight about the stars and the heavens. Anyhow, he wasn't on this particular night, and Perry of Lajos, the local from our museum, took his place. And I rang up and I said, got my voice on radio and said, Perry, what's the possibility with aliens that they've been discovered, but because of a fear of a war in the world's... Oh, no, it wasn't... I didn't mean the alien communication I was talking about. Yeah, well, what are the chances that we've actually received signals from aliens, but it's being withheld from us to prevent a H.G. Wells...
But haven't you heard Obama is a reptilian?
Yeah, other than that, Chris, other than that. Anyway, and his answer was a fairly good and measured one, and he said, no, that's extremely unlikely because the public's desire to know would only be half of the equation. The other half would be the fame and fortune that people are going to get if they announce that they're the first ones to have actually contacted, or heard, received alien life. So I thought that was, that stopped me having any conspiracy ideas about, the American president regularly communicating with aliens or any of that rubbish.
Yes.
There's somebody we both know who probably is way ahead with that. But, you'll see I'm trying to keep a level head about it. But anyhow, my question was didn't raise Perry's eyebrows, I don't think, because he gave me a fairly measured and sensible response to it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that thing of getting back to that DNA thing of reviving the Tasmanian tiger, maybe one day somebody will find the DNA of the Liberal National Party and revive that.
Oh no, there are some things that just can't be reproduced.
Well, Tony Abbott's trying. Maybe I better get off that subject. No matter what I say about politics, some bastard's going to be offended by it.
Well, as I keep saying, there's an off button on their radio, and they're welcome to use it.
Yes.
Mind you, some people wouldn't, would they? They're too keen on being offended. Some people have to listen for a long time before they find something to complain about.
We know one, listens in till 3 a.m. to see if anybody pushes a button on one of 20 linked repeaters.
Yes.
Oh dear. Yeah. Anyway, Pete, it's midnight. We better start thinking about winding down. But if you listen tomorrow to the recording of this one, the quality should be distinctly better than what you've heard so far, because I'm not recording through the transmission and then through an off-air monitor. I'm recording directly offline. So
well, I might be the last person to ask or worthy of an opinion, because I've found it absolutely perfect.
oh no,
The last few, but again, that's coming out of the tiny speaker in an eau de cologne.
I was surprised actually when you told me where that station was who popped up last night on 2. They were in Healesville? I was surprised I was getting there at all.
Yeah, he used to be, he might be listening tonight, he used to be in Bosnia here, just across the road from Macca's, the Golden Arches.
Oh, right. Okay. Macca's doesn't worry me, but that Bubba's Pizza, oh, God.
Oh, that went into receivership or whatever it was.
I'm so glad to hear it.
Yeah,
It saved so many people from intense intestinal pain.
It closed, but your criticism of that pizza was absolutely valid. It was just a pile of grease, go easy on the accoutrements. But
Half-cooked grease.
before Christmas, it went bust with an announcement on the place that in January they hope to open under new management. It opened in mid-April, and I went in there to try it out and put in my order, and they said that'll be 1 hour. What? No, thank you. So the poor lassie had to struggle to find out how to remove the money that she'd taken from her little computery type thing, Jewish piano. Oh, well, I shouldn't have said that.
You feel very sorry for the young people who have to bear the brunt of places like that.
Yeah. But anyhow, when I did finally get an order in, and it was only last week, I asked for a small pizza with the lot, and I got what looked like a meat lovers. It had salami and bacon, and that was all. So I took it back and just plonked it on the counter and said, goodbye.
Oh, God.
I won't be going back.
No.
So it doesn't look like the new management's better than the old one at Bubba. But that's all right. Lapari's on the main drag, Dorset Road, is very nice.
Yeah, look, there are some very good restaurants around Baronia, and there's some appalling ones. There's quite a bit of a contrast there.
Well, Crave's okay, don't you reckon?
Oh, Crave's wonderful. It isn't cheap, but it's wonderful. And by the way, we just advertised it, so if ZH was listening, we would be for it. We'd have an official communication from the department.
The department. Yeah. I hope you still got that, so I can have a look at that official correspondence you got there.
Oh, I didn't get it. Tony got it. This is back in the 70s, and on a piece of blue pro forma, very blunt communication about you should not be advertising George's Hamburger Bar of 1152 Dandenong Road, Caulfield.
No, I got that. No, I mean the one that you got from the Master Blaster.
Oh, yes. I'm thinking of framing that. I showed it to Steve Langley, and we've done, he's done crossbands for years, and, people got their nose out of joint for some strange reason about crossbands, probably because it's not just, your average run-of-the-mill crap. And when he saw it, he said, "This is the ultimate irony."
Anyway, Mr. Master Blaster will be doing it tough right now. He's probably in his room with cream on his skin, trying to heal all the sunburn that he got from
being serenaded by shapely lovelies in grass skirts. Yes.
Oh, well, I don't know about that, but no, that's what happens here, Chris, in my dreams. Anyway, thank you very much for another evening of Crossband.
Yep.
Interesting evening for me, at least. The day dragged on very, very slowly, as they do, painfully. But it was nice being on 160 metres tonight.
Yes.
And
One of these days I'll remember that it's Tuesday night and be on it myself, but anyway,
Okay.
it's about 4 weeks running. I've forgotten each time.
It's very popular. We had, let's see, I think it was 17 on. So it did only go for a bit over an hour because, some drop off, but the 3 rounds, 2 rounds and a 7-3 round. So it's VK, where did we get? Oh, Gary and Nelson, New Zealand popped in, albeit briefly. And the rest was VK3s and 2s.
Was he easily copyable from New Zealand?
Oh, yeah, easy strength well, for me, strength 7, but a couple of other stations, including Net Control, Jeff 3GSR up at Ardmona, he gave him 10 over 9.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay, this is the guy with the 2-kilometre antenna.
Yes. Oh, one last thing about that. Testing myself, I was 10 over 9 on Strathbogie's horizontal loop, but only strength 7 on the vertical.
Yeah, it's interesting that you have two transmitters to choose from, and I find that on 40 metres I am invariably better received on Strathbogie 1. I don't know quite why. I'll have to look into what sort of antenna they're using for that one.
I can't remember which is which, but it does say there's the vertical whatever size and the horizontal loop with the dimensions. But anyway, for that at least, the horizontal loop worked better. Anyway, cheers and have a great Wednesday, Chris.
Thank you. And I also say thank you to 3HN, who either is listening in direct at the moment or is listening on the YouTube uploads, or both. Because I've had quite a few complimentary comments from him, so thank you, Paul.
In that case, I'll say hello to Paul as well, and best wishes. Anyway, good night, Chris, or as I would say to Harry, Kali Nikta.
Okay, all the best.
VK3AML, this has been VK3ACZ.
And just announcing, this is VK3 Alpha Mike Lima on 147.475, working crossband to 439.225 70 centimetres. To keep it legal, I'll now listen briefly on 2 metres before pulling the big switch completely. VK3AML standing by.
Yeah, VK3AML, VK3TVI.
Yeah, on the small microphone. Just hang on a sec, I'll switch on to the shack audio. That might be better quality. I've forgotten your name, I'm sorry. Are you actually in Healesville? Back to you.
No, it's VK3TVI. Personalist Steve there, Chris. I haven't spoken to you for about 30 years.
That would be CB.
Yeah, that's correct. I was just having a listen a couple of weeks back, and I heard your name, Chris, and I thought I recognised the voice, and until you said the name Prue, the ears pricked up. I could not believe it, and I had to have a bit of a giggle to myself, because I remember back then, not so much myself, but you used to say to a good mate of mine that's just recently passed away, you used to say to him, you sound like one of my... you sound like one of my patients of me wives. It was quite funny. But yeah, how you going? Long time no hear.
Now, that wasn't Paul Richmond, was it?
Yeah, spot on, mate. Spot on. He's God bless him. He just passed away. I don't think it's come the 2nd anniversary, but yeah, if it hasn't, it'd be close. Yeah, he just passed away just recently, that's correct.
Yeah, did he have some sort of a problem or something? He used to be very aggressive.
It was definitely, what could I say? He had an addiction, that's for sure, with the marijuana and alcohol. Yeah, he was, I don't know what you'd call it. He was very... yeah, he'd go off the handle pretty quick, but he was a lovely bloke, but other than, his addictions, I guess.
Yeah, look, there were some people there that it was easy to get on the wrong side of. I still have quite a few friends from that band. Jeff Springvale, Jeff VK3VJS, we made friends on CB radio many years ago, and still friends now. He's well into his 80s. I'm 72. God, you're talking about when I was in my 40s. Back to you.
Yeah, where were you? I think Box Hill or something, and used to always say, just got to get on the roof or something, turn the tripod or something. But yeah, good memories. Yeah, I sort of mostly talk to Jeff early in the morning. Always catch up with Jeff, yeah. So I know Jeff really well, but no, I thought I'd pop in. I've been listening for quite a few weeks, and it's quite interesting. Out of my league, but I've been meaning to pop up and just say a quick hello. So yeah, very good to hear you.
Okay, in the old days, were you a certain splattered person?
Yeah, spot on. I can't get away with that voice, can I?
Oh no. Do you still have a section of pink coax?
No, mate. Very funny. No, I think we got along pretty good, but I think Richmond give you a bit of a hard time more than myself, but we're only young. It was all good fun. But yeah, no, as I said, when I first heard Johnny, I thought, geez, I know that voice, and I just couldn't work it out where from, but as soon as you said Prue, it just made me laugh.
Yeah, I think you were down Mornington Peninsula way, or Mornington, or Frankston. There was one guy there who was a bit of a problem, named Slater. I don't know what's happened to him.
Oh, geez, that brings back memories. I think where was he though? I think that was UHF or something. Well, I didn't have to spend too much time on there. That was really bad, that band. But, yeah, I spent a bit of play, but when I was talking to you, I would have been, I don't know, would it be 30 years that I've spoken? I can't remember. I don't even know if my son was born, but I was definitely Paran or Moorabbin, or I spent a bit of time up Mornington. Now I'm in Chelsea, so yeah, could have been there.
Yeah, probably Chelsea, and I think Slater was at the Pines. That, there's always been Frankston's a funny place. There's half of it's really high class, and the Pines has always been full of problem children. Back to you.
Yeah, well that's, you wouldn't believe the prices of houses in there now, Chris. Gone through the roof. You could have picked up a house there a few years back for a song, but now, yeah, incredible prices. It's cleaned up a lot, believe it or not. That generation's gone. So it's not as bad as it used to be. They've cleaned it up a lot, spent a lot of money around the town and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it still has its issues, so I think every suburb's got it, but it's not as bad as it was.
Yeah, look, the prices are going up most places. I think, as the poorer people are forced further out, they now live in centres like Truganina and out west, or there's problems in Melton as well. At one stage, my wife and I, when we left, we always used to say we were in Box Hill, but that was stretching the truth. We were in the city of Whitehorse. We were actually just over the border by one street into Surrey Hills in the old days. We were up near the top of the hill, near the corner of Canterbury and Elgar Road. And now we're in Burwood East. We've moved 3 kilometres further out. Basically, we did very well on selling the old place. We used to have a pool, which I thought was a pain in the arse. Cleaning that damn thing. There was a elm tree hanging over the thing, and possums used to get up in the elm tree, and they'd either poop into the pool or they'd fall in the pool, couldn't get out. The next day you'd get a rotten possum out of the pool skimmer. I'm glad I got rid of that. But of course it was in the vicinity of Box Hill, and a lot of Chinese people were buying in for huge amounts of money. So we bought the place for a couple of $100,000 in the mid-90s. We sold it for 6 times as much. It's funded our, it funded our retirement very nicely. And now, we're in Burwood East, got a linear park at the back with a couple of wires strung across to trees for reasons that'll be obvious to you. Back to you.
Yeah, very good there, Chris. I think the last time I might have heard you, and that'd be going back a long time too, was I think you were doing some maybe slow TV or something with Formosa Tony, who's which you know has recently passed as well. I'm only guessing there, but I'm just trying to remember when there was the last time. But I think I might have heard you doing some TV or something with Tony. Would that be right?
Yeah, that'd be right. Tony, gosh, what a character. I've still got recordings of him talking about don't take much brains to be a truck driver. Was smart like bull, brain like tractor, or something like that.
Oh yeah, I met him. Yeah, I suppose you did too. I'm not sure, but look, they're all different people off the radio. Very intelligent. He was quite smart. Yeah, but he just didn't use them to his advantage most of the time. But he was quite clever. You're right. Yeah, steering wheel attendant and all that sort of behaviour. Oh, funny man. But God bless him.
Yeah, look, I went out there a few times. He'd had trouble with his wife, left his wife. I think that had a major effect on him in terms of a nervous breakdown. Threw himself into VHF, UHF. Excellent metal worker and antenna maker. He had a real antenna farm out at his place at Furlong Road. And I was very sad to hear that he'd passed on. It was actually him who virtually twisted my arm. He and one other ham twisted my arm. He said, you shouldn't be mixing with this lowlife on the bloody UHF. You should be on the ham bands. You should. What are you hanging around all this shit for? That was the attitude.
Yeah, I remember it too. I always thought that too. I thought this bloke's too intelligent to be on the band. But I think you had a bit of fun with us all too. Especially that crew. I just laughed when I heard you say crew. I just laughed and I thought of Richmond straight away. Oh yeah, it's sad. Anyway, that was only a couple of years ago, if that. Poor fella. I only rang him the night before too, Chris, and because he was a Brisbane supporter, and I sort of stayed in contact with him because I sort of went to school and that with him, and I spoke to him the night before. I don't know, about after the game it was, and I think Brisbane won, if I remember rightly. I congratulated him. That was all good. Anyway, and then it was about 2 o'clock the next morning, and his partner rang and said, I think Paul's dead. What do you mean, do you think? And yeah, we went out to the balcony or something, and he must have gone to sit on the chair or something, and she thinks he must have fell back and hit his head or something. Anyway, yeah, tried to put him to bed, and she said he was feeling cold and getting up, getting down, getting up and getting down. Well, then he got up to get up, or he went to get up and then fell in between the wall and the bed, and Cheryl's only tiny, she couldn't lift him up. Couldn't get anything out of him, so she rang the ambo and they sort of got him out into the lounge room. But yeah, just fell asleep.
Yeah, I think the CB antenna he used to have above the pizza shop in Hoddle Street, that's still there.
Yeah, well, funny you should say that. There's a place I left an antenna down in. One of them big white knights, I think they were called, at a 9 foot, I think they were similar to the stainless steel, and that's still on a building down on High Street, Armadale. That's still sitting up there after all these years.
Yeah, there are quite a few from people who used to be active. There, you don't see very many 27 meg antennas that are still connected. There was one bloke I met who lived in a house on the corner of Barker's Road and Power Street in either Hawthorne or Kew. He was quite a nice bloke. Visited him a couple of times and his girlfriend. And as for Prue was a psychiatric nurse. She worked at Heatherton Psych Hospital, and later on she worked at a private hospital in Warrigal Road that took psych patients, a place called Delmont, near where Island Trader used to be, just opposite. Later became Smorgies or something. But I remember there was one night I was talking on 27 megs. This must have been mid-90s. And she stopped at my radio room door and she said, "Who is that guy?" And I said, "Oh, it's a guy, he must be a nut." I said, "He's telling me that he can communicate with angels on channel 16 lower side." And I was laughing about it, and she wasn't laughing. She said, "Be careful of that guy. I know who he is. He's in my catchment area. He's a dangerous psych case, and he's been in Ararat, which is the forensic psych place." He said it doesn't take much to trigger him off. So I just switched the radio off and went away. But oh boy, there were some strange cases.
Yeah, there was. But there were some good characters too. As I said, Paul was harmless. I think just the habit of that waking up every day. He had an accident, and he had something to do with his neck. He got a lot of headaches and throughout his whole life. Anyways, I think his father died, left him a lot of money. And so I think just with them addictions and whatever, it just sort of, over the years it sort of snapped. But he wasn't violent or anything like that, but you remember how he used to carry on.
Yeah, I remember the one time that I felt like retaliating, and I had a few friends down his way that could have done it too. He very quickly shut up.
Yeah, no, good stuff there, Chris. Very, very good to make contact. As I said, I do listen to your the program most nights. So, and it's always very interesting. I did hear Jeff come up yesterday. That was an interesting conversation. Good evening if you're still awake there, Jeff.
Yeah, that. I mean, he went far too far into the way he had been affected by constipation. Cures for it. I was almost going to suggest that he'd pry it out with something, but anyway.
Yeah, well, funny enough, I heard the story, I think yesterday morning. He heard it. He was telling me. And we had a bit of a giggle about it, or it might have been the morning before. And then I had another little giggle last night when he's come on and reached out. I told him to go and get some prune juice. And that'll sort him out. Anyway, Chris, I must go. Lovely to have a chat and a little bit of past stories there, Chris.
Yeah, no worries. What's the real name?
Yeah, Steve. Sierra Tango Echo Victor Echo. I'm actually in the mobile at the moment, just sitting there. I just pulled up just so I could just say a quick hello. So yeah, VK3TVO, TVI it is, of all call signs, Chris.
Christ, hang on. VK3T Tango Victor India, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yep, TVI. I got my licence I've only got the F-Corp at the moment, but I'll take it further. But I got it back many years ago when it first came out. But I let it lapse. And I don't know, I didn't sort of enjoy it that time round. But I guess now that I've got a bit older and whatnot, I thought, I'll go and get it again. But I'm really enjoying it this time round.
Yeah, I remember your comments. I remember the first day you were on UHF. Yeah, you were talking to somebody. I remember you saying something like, I don't know, this thing beeps at you and it honks at you, and you turn it and, you get beep beep for one thing and beep beep for another thing.
Yeah. No, that was, I thought 27 was like some characters, but that UHF was the next level.
Oh dear, they might be listening. Look, I've got to go. It is 20 to 1. Shh, whoops. Anyway, nice to make contact. God, it would be 30 years.
Yeah, I would have thought. But no, lovely to have a chat. I've been sort of giggling for a couple of weeks, and I thought I've got to say something. But there you have it. All right, Chris, thanks for bringing him in. You have a good night, and keep up the good work. I sort of enjoy the program. As always, good topics. VK3, is it AML, I think, isn't it? Just tell me if I've got that right. VK3 TVI. 73's there, Chris.
Yeah, no worries, Steve. It is Alpha Mike Lima. I used the old Alpha Mike Lima. I was a friend of back to 1969 when I was 15. He would have been about 24. Very nice guy. Very knowledgeable on 160 metres. Had a big 60-foot tower in his backyard. I think his neighbours were really afraid to say anything about it. But he was a cigarette smoker from the age of 16, and it catches up with you. He dropped dead of a heart attack at 61, 20 years ago, and I immediately went for the full amateur ticket, got it, and then with his widow's permission got his call sign. So that's the story. Gotta go. Have a good night, and thanks for the compliments. It seems that this crossband stuff, because everybody can hear you through the one transmitter, it makes it a bit easier to follow. Most people seem to be appreciating it, so it's nice to be able to do something, in my retirement, last thing in the night before I hit the sack. I should have been in bed half an hour ago. Anyway, all the best. 3TVI, VK3AML clear.
Yeah, sorry, I just thought of something, Chris. Sorry, mate, just before you go. Do you know VK3JD?
JD, call sign rings a bell.
Yeah, Polaris too. He was many years ago. John. Anyway, I was very, very, very close to his nephew many years ago, and he moved away, got married, and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I happened to just find out that John was still in Port Melbourne and whatnot, and I swung him an email just out of chance asking if his nephew was still active. And anyway, he let his licence lapse. So I just, he gave me his number though. It was really good. And I rang him tonight. I was just, I thought you might have known John, Polaris Tour, VK3JD.
Now, was he the guy, he was quite fond of the amber fluid, if it's the bloke I'm thinking of, and he used to get on the air and he talked really fast, and every second word was mate.
Who's that, John?
Could have been. It's the only one I knew down, it was the only CBer I knew down Port Melbourne way.
Well, that would have been probably early. You might be thinking old Posty Pete.
Could be. I mean, he used to tell me that he'd get on the Tas ferry drunk. He'd drink all the way across Bass Strait. He'd climb out, go to the Formby Hotel just next to the ferry terminal, drink for the next 24 hours, climb on the boat, drink his way all the way back to Melbourne. Then he'd get on the CB radio completely tanked.
Oh, no. That was Ken. Yeah, lovely fella. Yes, good old Silver. I've known him since I was a kid. Yeah, he's no longer with us, the poor fella. He ended up on some oxygen tank and that. Yeah, that was good old Ken.
Yeah, that was the guy. Gosh, there was some character. Look, I've got to go. All the best, Steve. Catch you later. VK3TVI, VK3AML.
Yeah, 73's there, Chris. Lovely chat. Catch you later, mate.
All the best.